Well, hi, well, big welcome back to the channel. Well, after 5.5 years of full-time travel, we took a year out to catch up with family and friends, build ourselves a new overland truck. And having previously fitted a Separett Tiny compost toilet to our last rig, we share why we fitted yet another Separett Tiny to this beast. This video will be somewhere between a long-term review, the pros and cons, lots of answers to those frequently asked questions, and why the Separett Tiny is a game-changer compost toilet. Nothing is off the table, so stick with us. So we've actually been contacted by one of our subscribers and asked to do a long-term review on the Separett Tiny. And we thought, what a brilliant idea, because obviously we've built our second truck and actually put in a Separett Tiny toilet in here as well. So first things first, we're going to start with some of the benefits. And one of the questions that arises quite often is smell. So Izzy, do we have a smell?
Well, I don't smell. I'm not sure about you.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, lots of people ask us about the smell, and it is quite hard to believe that you can use a toilet like this, a dry toilet that doesn't flush away your waste, and that actually it doesn't smell. Just to be clear, this is a toilet that is designed not to compost, but to have your waste ready for compost, should you choose to add it to a composting pile or arrangement at some future point. But it's not designed to compost the solid matter in the toilet itself. And
what we're not going to do in this video actually is show you how the toilet works. We've actually done a video already, yes, as to how the operational side of it, how it actually works.
And we'll put a link to that below.
We will. So if you're interested in the toilet for the first time, go and have a look at that video. It's pretty detailed, and I think pretty helpful. So
the key to this toilet, and I think one of the other benefits for us, is that you don't add matter to it. And in a composting toilet, the matter helps to break down the waste. The waste doesn't break down in our toilet. It sits there in a bag and basically gets covered with toilet paper. There is a 12-volt fan that takes away any smell through a tube that comes out the bottom of the truck. To be honest, even outside there isn't a smell. I know some people have said there must be, but I can honestly say there really isn't. And before this life, I worked in older people's care, and my nose was very, very sensitive to smell, because it was one of the things you were looking for when you went into a care home. You know, how people were cared for. Was there a smell? There is no smell. We don't have a smell from the toilet. And even when we've travelled to really hot countries where we thought we might have a problem. So, for example, one year we were in Armenia and it was 40 plus. We still didn't have a smell. At the moment, we have probably about a week's worth of waste in the toilet, and it doesn't smell. I don't know what else I can say about smell. No. Really?
No. Obviously, it's a separating toilet, and so once you separate those two matters, then there isn't really an issue. So
I think, if anything, the pee can smell a bit when you're emptying the container, but you don't actually get that smell until you disturb the pee and sort of lift the container out. Yeah.
So what actually happens is you've got the little fan in there, and you can barely hear it, and that creates negative pressure, and you've got the concealer flaps as well, and that effectively draws out any sort of nasty smells out through the tube and then outside, and that's it. So on the whole, no issues with smell.
No, none at all.
Next up on the list, and I do have a little list here, next up really is, well, it sort of carries on, is the carrying of matter. And we didn't really want to, even though we have the space in this truck, we didn't really want to be carrying, coconut coir or anything
and have to
else.
Source it in foreign countries.
Sawdust and that sort of thing. We just didn't want the sort of hassle of that. And that was just another sort of kick in the box.
Equally, we do know some people who do use matter in their Separett Tiny, but that's because they have a thing about not seeing the contents of the bucket. That doesn't bother us.
No.
We're sort of fairly open. That sounds wrong. It just doesn't bother us.
And actually, the toilet itself actually looks like a normal toilet. Other than, when you open up the lid, you've got the two holes, if you like, that separate the matter, the pee and the sort of the poo. But actually, I think, as compost toilets go, it actually looks aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
So some of them I think are pretty bloody ugly. But this is okay.
There's no handle or anything like that to turn the matter. And
I think I've mentioned already, it does require 12-volt feed. Now, the benefit with 12-volt is it's such a small draw on that fan. you know, most toilets of some sort need a 12-volt feed. So even if you were looking to sort of, you know, remove your old toilet and put it in, the chances are that you're going to have a 12-volt feed there.
Yeah.
So
the feed not only supplies the fan, but there is also a little light on the back that lights up red to tell you when the urine container needs to be emptied.
Yeah.
Which is probably, for most people, every couple of days. For us, it's maybe I think we drink quite a lot of tea and maybe a little bit of wine. So I think we tend to empty it most mornings because it's just part of our routine now.
Yeah, depends what we're doing as well.
But it is 14 litres, so it could last for 2 days.
Yeah, if you're out and about, I mean, it lasts 2 days, it's not an issue, or 3 days, or whatever. So it depends really on your lifestyle and how many people obviously are in your vehicle. Emptying the pee itself is really easy. In fact, emptying the pee and the poo is really, really easy. And I think, having lived with it for, you know, over 2 years, full time, we just thought it just isn't a hassle, and we really, really like that sort of simplicity.
The ease, yeah.
Yeah, the ease and simplicity of being able to sort of just, you know, open up the toilet itself. The container, the pee container, has a really good handle on it, as does the bucket effectively. And yeah,
I think it's quite well designed. I think the functionality is good, but the design is quite ergonomically friendly as well. So the pee container is like in a crescent shape, so when you carry it out, it doesn't rub against your leg, for example. It's just little things like that that we've noticed that make it easier to work with, I suppose.
Yeah. Concealing flaps. Now, Izzy sort of touched on it.
Expression.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's what they're called, and it's basically a set of flaps that that cover the bucket where the poo is. Now, it doesn't really bother us. And obviously, whenever you sit down, you know, there's a little mechanism, and the flaps then open to pave the way. But
it means you don't have to see the contents of the bucket when you open the toilet lid, which I know some people have got a real hang-up about.
We've actually felt the need to mention this because we've had so many comments.
Yeah.
People contacting us to say, can you see the poo?
Do you ever get the poo on the concealing flaps?
Yeah.
Those sorts of questions. But so yes, they open. They're easy to clean. You can just wipe over them. You can take them off to soak them in fairy liquid if you want to. There are other washing up liquids available. I think when we first got the toilet, I was always very concerned that they wouldn't open properly. Because you don't know what's going on under your bum when you're sitting down, but they seem to work really, really well.
They do. There's no issue at all. So next up really is the fact that you don't need water. It's a dry toilet. So if you're in a camper van especially, and you know you've got 80 litres of water, for example, then obviously you want to conserve that as best you can. And you know, it's one of the things when you're on the road is sort of water usage. So it's just another plus really.
Yeah.
And I suppose the power as well that goes with that. The actual, I've got a poo container several weeks, and that indeed is the case. You know, we tend to empty it, the poo container, probably, if I'm honest, about once a week, but you could go certainly 2 weeks.
I think you could easily go 2 weeks.
Maybe even 3.
Yeah.
If you're touring, you know, Europe, the UK, wherever you are, America, and you're out there, you know, sightseeing and you know, maybe using a toilet elsewhere, it could easily do 2 to 3 weeks.
But it's so simple to empty. Why would you? You know? Yeah,
no, indeed. And another big plus, really, I think, for a lot of people is the ease of installation. It really is very, very simple. I think there's sort of 5 or 6 screws in total. So I think there's 3 in the bottom in the base, maybe 2 in the back, and it really is just depending on sort of what you're screwing into. You know, if it's wood or whatever, it really is as simple as just, you know, they've got these little sort of pre-drilled sort of areas, if you like, that you can just sort of put your fixing into, and that's it. You've got your 12-volt feed, and obviously you do require a hole for the tube for the fan, and that really is it. It is so simple.
It can go up as well, though, can't it? You can have it. Can it go up?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't go up. So you can either go out the side.
Yeah.
Or you can go out the bottom.
Yes.
So
we actually replaced a Thetford toilet, a bench style Thetford toilet, in our first truck with this toilet, the Separett Tiny.
Yeah.
And actually that was quite handy because it already had the space for the ventilation tube, so we just utilised that, and it already had a 12-volt feed, obviously for the little button that lights up on the Thetford toilets.
Yeah.
And it was relatively, I think the hardest bit was taking the toilet out rather than putting the new toilet in.
Yeah. Very, very easy. I mean, anyone could do it, honestly. We've got a note on here, our experience, and I suppose our experience is in different sort of climates. You know, number one, it isn't going to freeze. It's inside. You know, if you're in here and you've got any kind of heat on, it's pretty sort of secure. The quality of the materials is excellent. So, you know, nothing has ever broken or become brittle, which is good. But equally, you know, in those sort of 40+ degree heats, we haven't had an issue whatsoever. And that's in, you know, a range of different countries. And you can get spare parts for them as well.
And it's actually, it's easy to clean. If you really wanted to, you could dismantle the whole seat area and give it a good wash down once a month. But I find, you know, I just use a cloth with some disinfectant. And it's easy and simple to clean. I think you do notice how many bins are available when you're travelling. When we were coming through the Balkans last year, we realised as we crossed from one country into another, we'd come from a country where there were bins everywhere to where there were no bins. And it was really noticeable because we had to, you know, dispose of waste. So I think at one point we were carrying around a couple of bags in the boot, but we did find somewhere eventually. There's always a bin somewhere. But sometimes bins can be quite small and you can't actually fit the waste in. So you're looking for an industrial bin, really.
So I have said that, you know, nothing's off the table, and we're actually going to mention some of the comments, the observations, some of the things that people want to know. Some of them they're a bit odd, but actually it's fair enough. So we're actually going to just go through a number of points which are probably of interest if you're thinking about buying or moving to a compost bin. So we are going to start with cost. And it's not very exciting, but obviously we're all interested in how much things cost. And so it's not the cheapest bin in the market, and they're not the cheapest compost toilet on the market, but we feel it's worth it.
Yes, I think the quality is exceptional. It's really well made, it's really well designed, it's very well thought out. We like how it looks, and that might be a bit shallow, but we didn't want a big, bulky, ugly looking toilet.
No.
And that was, I suppose that was quite important to us. So for us, we think the cost is worth it because it does what it says it does. It works, and we like things to work.
I think there's a you know, if you've seen the first video that we've done on this toilet, and the difference between a composting and compost toilet, you'll understand that clearly. Then if you do have a composting toilet, and you know you've got the little mechanism or whatever, and you're adding your sawdust or your, you know, coconut coir, whatever it is, and you're actually composting, you know, it actually takes a long time to properly compost. So it's to be honest with you, you've got to get real with what a compost toilet is. And
in reality, this is a dry toilet. It's a toilet that doesn't use water. And you can go on to compost the matter that you put into it, but if you're travelling on the road, the reality is that isn't going to happen. So it's a dry toilet where you bag and bin the waste. So we have a lot of questions from our YouTube channel, which we've all responded to. We've responded to all of them individually, but we thought it'd be worth sharing some of them on here. Because they're interesting questions, and it highlights the things that people do think about when they're considering a purchase like a Separett Tiny.
So one of the things that does come up is, how do you empty the urine container in a built-up area? So I mean, obviously it's quite small, in fairness, and I think you could actually conceal it. That sounds like I'm trying to hide something, but you could actually take it to a disposal point if you had to. You know, you could actually put it on the back of your bicycle. You could actually buy a second container, which is probably the best option, to have the second container, and then when it's, you know, when you find somewhere, you can empty both of them. I
mean, I think the thing is, if you're looking to empty the urine container into a public toilet, it's a lot easier to do that with the container like this than it is with a cassette toilet, which I know some people do, but it's very difficult with a cassette toilet to do it in a clean way that doesn't sort of need cleaning up afterwards. And you're putting down the toilet a huge amount of mixed waste with paper, whereas with a Separett Tiny container, it literally is just the urine. So if you wanted to use a public toilet for that, to be honest, we've been in built-up areas and we have used the odd sort of bush or hedgerow on the basis that, you know, dogs pee all over the place in cities, as do men.
What I would say to people as well is, you know, some of these countries where they maybe are lacking facilities, you'll see men all the time. You know, the further east you go, or into Africa, you will see men just stop. They'll just pull up the side of the road, stop out, stand and have a pee. So there isn't that much difference really in sort of emptying, you know, a couple of litres of pee. So I'm probably going to get a lot of abuse for that now, but you know, that is the truth of it. I think within sort of Western Europe and Northern Europe, we are very sanitised, and we do take a sort of a very sort of ill approach to, you know, people emptying toilets. Cassette toilets, completely understand that. That is nasty. But elsewhere, a little bit of pee, I don't think is going to harm anybody in the most remote places.
No, I agree.
It's always about being sensible and considerate.
And it's your personal view as well. If you're not comfortable with it, then it's probably not the right toilet for you. Yeah.
How do you, so this is a question that we had, how do you feel about putting waste, so the black waste, the poo, into a normal bin? So is he going then?
Oh, this is a saga and a
half.
Well,
we've actually researched this. Sorry,
we have.
Izzy's researched
this. Yeah, somebody contacted us recently actually and said, I feel really uncomfortable about it. And it prompted us to put something up on Facebook. And actually we had an awful lot of comments about how people felt. And some people were very pragmatic. Look, it's just poo. You're just putting it in a bin. What, you know, how do people with nappies or incontinence pads manage? And other people find it totally disgusting. And I think the idea is that if somebody's sorting that waste, and they might come across what's technically legally termed offensive waste, they might be offended by it, and I absolutely get that, which is why we try and use industrial bins. The other thing about this is, and there's a real question mark about the type of bag that you use. So when you buy one of these toilets, it comes with a complimentary roll of biodegradable bags, but they are designed to go onto a compost heap and biodegrade around the matter. There is an argument about biodegradable bags going to landfill and actually releasing methane into the atmosphere. And that's particularly prevalent around people that use dog poo bins. So we made the decision that we would just use regular plastic bags and accept that our poo is going to go to landfill. We're a small minority who use these sorts of toilets. I don't think it's really going to make a big difference to the environment of the world. And we sort of learnt to live with it, really.
Yeah.
We accept that yes, it's offensive, but legally, certainly in the UK, the law says you can dispose of 7 kilos of offensive waste per person per week. That's a lot of poo.
It is.
I don't actually know what the law is in Europe, but I'd imagine it's similar, and there probably isn't a law outside of Europe. So.
Okay, I'm going to move on. So next one, really.
Sorry,
Go on. Yeah. Well, okay, let's move on. Ladies standing up to wipe, or ladies who like to stand up. Why am I reading this out? Because I'm not a lady and I don't stand up to wipe. So if you're a lady who, but we've had this, you know, we've had people sort of say, I think it's on the back of the comment where you've sort of talked about the concealing flaps. Because obviously when you take your weight off the toilet seat, then the flaps close.
So how do you get rid of the toilet paper? So you either learn to wipe sitting down and dispose of it in that way, or you just push the side of the seat and drop the paper in.
Yeah, it's not difficult.
No, but some people find that quite uncomfortable. But I've found a way around it. I'm not going to go into detail around that, but there is a way around it.
Yeah. Cost of consumables. What I would say is that these are the cost of consumables from Separett Tiny.
Yeah, so Separett Tiny sell the bags, they sell the Biot tabs, they sell like absorbent pads to go in the bottom of the bags, and so, because sometimes a little bit of wee goes in the bag bit by accident. You know, that's just sort of, well, it's normal for us anyway. But we don't buy any of that stuff. We've used tablets and we've not used tablets, and it doesn't really seem to make any difference.
We used to use an absorbent pad. We don't anymore.
No, we stopped doing that, and we just use a regular 20 litre bin bag. The Biot tabs are interesting because they have an ingredient in them that stops urine crystals forming in the urine container. But actually, what is equally as effective is distilled vinegar, which breaks down urine crystals. So you can just clean it out with a little bit of that every morning if you want to, or leave a little bit in the base each time you clean it.
Yep. Next one really is men have to sit down to wee. So if you're a man that likes to stand up, you're going to get splashback, because the toilet is designed for everyone to sit down. So that's, if you look at it, you should be able to sort of see what, it doesn't bother me in the slightest.
No.
You know, you sit down, particularly at night, you come in, you're half sleeping, you sit down, you have a wee, and that's it. It's easy. You can actually get a urine diverting tube. Now, Separett Tiny sell this, and it's a tube that if you wanted to put your wee into a tank, like a holding tank, and it's something I did think about for this truck actually, but to be honest with you, then you've got to sort of think about, you know, it freezing up, you know, if it's a 20-litre tank or a 40-litre tank, whatever it is, you then still got to get rid of that.
But a lot of it all in one go, which is...
And to be honest with you, given the simplicity of sort of being able to sort of open it and everything we've talked about in terms of getting rid of it, I just thought, I don't feel the need to do that.
No.
So we haven't bothered with that. But it is out there if it's something that is important to you.
And I suppose if you were living in an off-grid house and you fitted one of these, it might work for that sort of scenario.
Yeah. There is a little fan that we've mentioned, and the fan is on all the time. However, I've actually fitted a little rocker switch to the side of the toilet. It's just a little simple £2 inline switch. In the event that I want to turn off the fan. The fan is quiet, and when the doors close to the toilet, you can't actually hear it. I fitted one to the last toilet as well. I don't know why, because we never used it.
No, well, we never have used it since, but we like the ability to turn things on and off easily without having to get into the boot and mess about with fuses and things. Yeah.
Next up really is...
Well, I think the person that asked for the long-term review was saying, you know, after 2 years, when you've been in hot countries and different scenarios, maybe not using biotabs because you can't get hold of them outside of Europe, for example. I think that person was interested in the longevity of the product, but also how it performed in those different scenarios. And I think I'd probably say to that, I think there's a lot of longevity in the product. That when we sold the last truck, the toilet to me felt like new.
It did.
I mean, there was no, you know, when you went in, there was no sort of smell of toilet chemicals, which I particularly hate. There was no marks or stains on the plastic. It was absolutely spotlessly clean.
The light works perfectly, so as long as you observe the light, you can't really miss it, to be honest with you, even in the daylight. When that light comes on, you know it's on.
Yeah.
Okay, and so when you sat there and you have a pee and the light comes on, you've got a, you know, there's a bit of capacity before you've got to empty it. Then obviously if you keep peeing, then clearly it's going to overfill. And then you've got a problem in cleaning it. But, you know, otherwise, a bit of common sense.
I would say, I think where this toilet has really come into its own for us is when we travelled outside of Europe. So from sort of Greece east, Turkey, you know, the Caucasus states, most of the Balkans, they don't have a lot of campsites, and particularly if you're travelling outside of the summer months, a lot of those campsites are closed, and therefore you're stuck trying to find somewhere to empty. You need a proper chemical disposal point to empty a toilet cassette. I know people put them down public toilets and so on, but there aren't many of those in those sorts of countries either.
We were actually in northern Turkey in winter. All the campsites are closed. Every facility is closed.
There's only about 3 along that coast.
Yeah, and you know, there was people in camper vans, you know, obviously they'd have a beer and a chat, and people say, look, what do you do with your toilet waste? And we said, well, we've got a compost toilet. It's easier. They had cassette toilets, and it was a real problem. And they had to, and they did admit, look, you know, we've had to dispose of our waste because there is just nowhere to put it.
Yeah.
And so for that, and then we went further east into Georgia, Armenia, and it just came into its own.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you're touring mostly in the UK or countries like France and Spain where facilities, airs, you know, to a penny in every village and town, then, you know, having a cassette toilet is easy. And that's what we had for the first 2 years of our life in a motorhome. But I think if you want to go a little bit further afield and you want to be freed of that needing to have a campsite, needing to pay for a campsite every night or an air every night to empty your waste, then, you know, for us, it has been an absolute game changer. It really has.
Totally.
It's one of the best things we've done, actually.
Our best upgrade. Yeah. Okay, I think that is pretty much it.
Yeah. But obviously, if you've got any questions of an intimate nature about how we pee or anything like that, please send them to us, because we're obviously happy to answer them.
Look, we'd love to know your thoughts, and you know, it's one of those subjects. We all pee, we all poo. And
it seems to be something us lot like talking about as well.
is,
People
both
that
it
live
is.
in homes on wheels love talking about toilet matters.
It's true. Anyway, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time round.
Take care, guys.
Bye
Bye.
for now.
Bye.